Welcome back to I'm Still Here. I'm Larry.
And I'm Heather. In 1998, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at the age of 26. It changed everything for us, but I'm still here.
You are. And we are on the road.
Yeah.
So, not in our normal location. But,
I know.
Yeah. But we are still here to talk today about what?
Well, I wanted to kind of talk about the early days, when you're maybe being told that something might be going on, but sometimes it's not even cancer, but the C word maybe has been thrown out there, and just all of that, or maybe finding out that you did have cancer. Exactly. Yeah. Found a mass, found all these things.
This test result came back weird.
Yeah.
Anything, blood test result.
Yeah.
Could be.
And a lot of times that's at a point where you've done something that's like a routine test, so you certainly aren't expecting it, No. It sometimes is the thing that kind of starts, that all these things happening, and boy, does it change everything from an anxiety standpoint and everything else.
Well, it's the waiting, right?
The waiting's the worst. The not knowing.
So let's talk about that first.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I just think I don't know if there's anything more anxiety inducing for me anyway than waiting on a test result or not knowing what comes next, because you sort of know maybe what the possibilities are and none of them are great. right? And so and really
you probably automatically just go to the worst case.
So I think that's sometimes I wonder if it would be better if you found a mass and somebody were to say, no, we really think this is probably cancer, and this might be the way we go. But it doesn't work like that,
Maybe.
And the other thing is, I think there's a perception at that time that we shouldn't freak out, right? Like, keep it together. You don't know if it's bad yet. All of those kind of things that it's like, no, this is really, really hard. So I think you're trying to sort of live your normal life, and also your head's, playing all these games on you, right? Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit about, because what we hear and what we experience, that kind of thing. But time. The time that a lot of people are, the delay.
Yeah.
Between, hey, this test result was weird, we're going to do this next, or we're going to schedule this next.
Yeah.
And some of the times we've been hearing
they're terrible.
Outrageous.
Yeah, really.
It's malpractice almost in some of them.
Well, it feels like that.
It's
definitely terrible for your mental health.
Yeah.
Right?
So what you just laid out, now we're talking about that for 2 weeks, a month, a month and a half.
Yeah.
Going through that.
Yeah, and when I started my thing, we found out, we went to the doctor, I think it was on like a Thursday night. I think by the following Thursday night, we knew that it was even stage 4 cancer. So within a week's time, we had a diagnosis of cancer, and then
probably 15 tests.
And a bunch of tests. Yeah, everything, because I kept failing those.
Right.
But we figured, we knew by, within 7 days that it was metastatic breast cancer.
So why do you think it's different for so many people? And maybe not even in the cancer realm either, just these tests that just seem like, I don't know.
I don't know. I think our healthcare system is insane, I'll be honest. But I think there's also, how do you get moved to the top of the list sort of thing? Sure. And honestly, I think some of that comes from, is your provider pushing? Okay. And are you willing to push for, a sooner appointment or those kind of things?
So is that possible?
It is possible. I mean, I found that. It is one of those things for me that, like, if I'm a squeaky wheel, and I don't mean like a little pip squeak. I mean pretty squeaky.
So give us an example. Give them an example of that. Somebody says their doctor said this blood test was weird. We're going to do an MRI or we're going to do a CAT scan. And they say, we've got it scheduled for 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, those are the things where I go, wait a second. Like, you can't tell me that, especially...
Who are you talking to when you say this? I mean, what would you do?
For me, I would make a phone call. I would call the scheduler, so the person scheduling the MRI.
Okay.
So if I already have an order from my doctor, I could send a note to my doctor and say, please, and maybe I would do that too.
Okay.
Please help me get this in. Or
Faster.
is there any way you can move this up? Right. But I would also call the department, like the nuke med would be MRI, and I would... This is one thing I've gotten better at. At first, like years ago, I would have probably been a complete bitch about it and just been like really freaked out, and that's not going to work for me. But now I've learned to say, hey, please put me on your cancellation list. And, also, like, I'll take any time available.
That's what I was going to say, making yourself available at
I will be there anytime I can. I understand that things happen, and just trying to I want them to sort of, know who I am and go, okay, wait, I can, And oftentimes, I feel like something will open fairly quickly in that circumstance.
In your experience, that has been the case.
That has been the case.
It's gone from, whatever, a week to 3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, some cases.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that you have that power. It's not power, but have the ability to go right to the source or to do that and to negotiate yourself
for sure
in the door.
Yeah.
And I think that's just really healthy that you could move a test from 2 weeks to a day.
Yeah,
and
because
of that anxiety.
2 weeks
I know that, but just the mental part of that, knowing, even though it could be really bad news, but still knowing is better.
Yeah.
And then you are, now you got the test results, now you're going forward.
Yeah.
With whatever it is.
Yeah. Which is interesting when you say that too, like, it could be 2 weeks or whatever. During that time, you're kind of like, oh, maybe I don't want to know or whatever, playing those sort of games. And then sometimes when you get the bad news, like I did in my case, you kind of go, I need it out immediately, or I need something immediately. And that's where I would caution or say it's okay to slow down a little bit right there. It's not always like a week or two, but I'd rather have that week or two on the other side of the diagnosis than the waiting for the diagnosis.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people would agree with you there.
Yeah. I just don't think people feel like they can get to that the same way. Right?
And some people might be listening and just going, there's just no way I could do that.
Yeah, and also I will say I should mention this too, because insurance companies also play a role in this. I have gone all the way to the top with my insurance company, all the way to the top. Literally some days, there was one day, like 15 calls because I was like, they were denying a PET scan that my doctor had ordered. I'd already jumped through their hoops. I'd done the bone scan.
Proven that it's going to save them thousands and thousands of dollars by doing it this way.
Even, I'll tell you, one of the things that I told them when I was, like, for the PET scan was, listen, who's keeping track of the amount of radiation that I am getting? I've been at this forever. Like, you want to deal with that? Then you're going to have to start proving it to me. Yeah. And not trying to be a jerk, but also saying, this is another day off work. This is another, doing these things. But there's nobody you can't call. And when you call those, or like an insurance company, my experience has been, you're going to have to say, I need to talk to your supervisor. At least once, maybe twice.
Maybe 3 times.
Maybe 3 times. Like, you're going to have to go up. But you can. And again, you don't have to be a complete jerk about it. But you do have to, you either need to be really sweet and, pull on their heartstrings, or you need to be...
Or there's times...
strong and say, I won't take this.
And that's not everybody out there.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that. But there's probably somebody in your life close to you that could do that for you. That could have that role. We talked a lot about roles and kind of what they can do to help you. There are people in your life, somebody in your life that would be really good at that and get things done. And maybe that's not you, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
But you can. You can talk to the source. You can get things moved up. You can manage your own health. That is all legal, and it's not just the doctor. The doctor has no idea.
Right.
They called on, the scheduler handles that, and the scheduler just might have just picked a day. There's so much stuff out there.
And that's another good thing to say, too. When they say, this is the appointment, I will almost always say, you can't do anything sooner.
Yeah.
you know, like, or you don't, and they'll go, oh, well, I do. You know, it's like, what? Why did you not? Or
I mean, you've had tests
I've done
at
it so
1
much.
o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, MRIs in the middle of the night.
Middle of the night.
And honestly, you know what? Like, I hate MRIs and people, you know, so for me, 1 o'clock in the morning is really good because I'm at least maybe a little sleepy. So with the Xanax or whatever, I always take something for an MRI. It actually works out fine. I mean, so
those are just some of the ways that you could maybe decrease the anxiety of the waiting part, because the waiting is just so hard. But,
yeah.
And it's gonna hit everybody. I don't think anybody, when told they have some sort of abnormal test and the doctor kind of looks at you sideways maybe or whatever and just, it's probably going to be okay.
Your brain's going to go.
Boom.
Whoop.
Yep. So no one's immune to that right there.
Yeah.
You can, in a lot of cases, not all, speed things up when you get, now, if it's, hey, we're going to do an MRI in 3 days. Okay. I mean,
yeah,
cool. That's awesome. But we're not hearing that from people. It's being scheduled weeks out. And most hospitals run MRIs 24/7, literally around the clock. Mm-hmm. If you're willing to be one of those, a lot of times they just don't assume people are, and you can get in earlier. And that's true with a lot of tests. Not all of them, but a lot of tests.
Yeah, and that's so like my routine test is a PET scan. Now I've learned I can go early.
Yeah,
they almost always fit me in. I just know I've done this long. Mm-hmm. I've done it so long that I know how to do these things. Like, you know, for like a bone scan, you got to go and get an injection. They schedule them at, I don't know, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't generally do those because of traffic, but 8, 9, and 10. The injection takes 2 minutes, you know, like, so there's a lot of slide in there. And then they just need it to, you know, you need to have enough time for it to circulate.
Right.
But oftentimes you can say like, hey, and they'll be like, oh yeah, come back at this time. You know, so there's so many things that I think.
Talk to the people who
are doing it. Yeah. The people who are doing the injections, so, yeah.
A lot of people don't know all the stuff you just said. Seriously.
I know.
A lot of people, they haven't been in hospitals. They haven't been sick before. They haven't gone through and it's truly like, oh, this is the big, you know, medical thing that I just got to follow the directions. And yes, you do. I
right.
say yes, that is true. But boy, there's a lot of stuff you can do.
There's a lot of tricks and things. But I did also want to kind of circle back to our last week's Monday momentum. We were talking about like doing countdowns. And I think there's definitely some positive feedback from that. But then almost immediately I was like, ooh.
You put yourself back in the shoes.
I put myself back in those shoes where literally a podcast like that would have made me feel like
you probably would have cried.
I would have, or like you don't understand.
Yeah.
Because the thought of looking to the future was like so scary. It was sad. It was, you know, what if I don't have a future? What if I, you know, how could I buy a plane ticket 6 months out? You know, all of these things. So for anybody that I triggered, I'm so sorry. Yeah. But also you know.
And that, you know, I didn't have cancer, but being the spouse, I was in the same boat with that as far as scheduling and thinking ahead and countdowns or whatever. We didn't do any of that.
No.
It was.
I mean, you can do count. I think, and that's where I was going to go. Well, you can still do them, but you do them for a week. Do them for you know what I mean? Do them for little things at first and build up.
Yeah. That wasn't a long time in your life where you were like that.
You don't think?
No. It wasn't.
I remember buying the first plane tickets and going. We bought them in like July, I think, for Christmas time, and I was like,
well, I know that. I'm saying in the last 23 years, it was a few of those first years. It wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I guess okay.
You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying with that. But what's the problem with, you know, going back? If I would have said to you, no. You need to look in the future.
No, I
don't know how that conversation would have gone.
I think some of it is like that balance of like what's pushing and what's like instilling confidence. So I do feel like there's definitely been times, especially in those early days, where you have kind of said, yeah, I think we can. You know what I mean, or whatever, and I'd be like, okay, I think I can. Yeah. I think I will be.
I mean, it's kind of like, what's the downside? Well, what's the downside?
Right.
Obviously, you don't want to get into specifics, sort of, but
yeah,
plan your future. I say.
Well, I think I would say plan the fun. I think that's what I'm even talking about this. I think part of what is so tough is that you can't, when you're looking at something that from a medical standpoint, it might change your whole future. That's true. And that's okay. I mean, I've been thinking about that a little bit lately because obviously I was talking to somebody this week, we've talked about this. Our lives didn't go as we thought they were going to go from a financial standpoint, from you know what I mean?
Nope.
So I think it's always, it's good to plan to a certain extent, but it's also like, you know what? I can pivot. I can make changes. And for me, I think I'm somebody who, although I can take on a lot, I really need to focus on one thing sort of at a time. So I was thinking about with waiting for a diagnosis or waiting for something. I think there's so much going on in your brain, but you're also you're not really acknowledging it. It's not like the whole world knows yet. Mm-mm. And so you're trying to
a lot of times nobody knows.
A lot of times nobody knows. So you're literally trying to keep up this front that is so hard. It's so hard to do that. And I was thinking about it now, I don't know if I would say keep going. I would be more likely, I think, to just go, you know what? Don't think, I might have to take a lot of days off, so I'm not going to take a day off. I would be like, burn the day. Take the day.
Burn the ship.
Burn the ship. Yes, I'm more of a burn the ship person. And figure it out later. I don't know. Because, I don't know, there's just a lot of that, I still remember, I can think about times where in that week between learning that there was a lump, right? And I think I went to work, 2 or 3 days. And I remember the conversations now. I remember everybody telling me if I did talk about it at all, oh, it'll be fine. You're too young for cancer, all of these things. I also just remember thinking, I can't, what am I doing here? I can't even think about this. I can't think about doing therapy right now or whatever. It's so hard. I don't know what the right.
Life changing in every way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Your life really can change with a phone call. Your life really can change with.
Yep.
I can remember, I remember where I was in our house when I found out I had cancer. Of course, we've talked a little bit about the learning that it was stage 4 and things like that. But I guess with all of that, I'm just kind of saying protect your headspace. You're worth it. You know what I mean? And there's no right way to do that. That time, that diagnosis time, and just, I don't know, it's kind of like that whole, I feel like there's all these things that we've already talked about in terms of be good to yourself, but yes, do. And if that means a night watching Netflix and and eating pizza, great. And if it means, going for a walk and, calling a friend, crying, yeah. It's just, it's a hard time. But the other thing I was thinking about with this is it will end. That time does end.
It does.
And that's where I think I have been able to share with people too that having a plan feels a lot better. Actually knowing what you're dealing with and then having a plan feels a lot better. Then you can, you can get your head around it and figure out.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lack of knowledge is the biggest, the lack of knowing anything is the biggest reason for anxiety. And once it is known, then it's no longer, now it's something else.
Yeah.
But
the other thing, I guess, too, is it might not be as bad as you have thought it was going to be. Yep. You know what I mean? Even if the diagnosis ends up being something severe, or something pretty far along, maybe the treatment won't be that bad, or maybe there's I think, I don't know, tell me about how brains work, but we tend to go right to the worst of things, right?
It's defense. Yeah. Okay. It's a defense mechanism. We do. We'll cover the worst first and then work backwards. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, not everybody does that, but the majority of people do. We anticipate the worst, plan through the worst, so we've already done it once. So if it does show up, we've already practiced. And whether that's a gunfight or a cancer diagnosis or a mugging or the people who have planned the worst and processed, they do react faster and do... Yeah, even though it's never happened to them before, they've practiced it.
Do you think your Enneagram number plays a role in this?
Probably. I don't know the numbers. I've given up on trying.
Because you're very much a planner.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Sure. So I literally, when I think about that, like with you, like you really do think through scenarios. I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't happen in my brain.
Yeah, we're walking down the streets of Chicago. I'm checking everybody for their shirt sticking out a little bit, anything like that. Heck yes.
I'm oblivious.
Hands, every single human we pass. I can't help it. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. When I see it, I'm going to walk the other way, I guess. But, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know why I do that. And I do plan a lot. And I like planning. So it makes me happy, too.
I think that's probably also a way that calms. That's calming to you, right? Yeah. Like to be able to go, oh, yep, I have thought through what this would or maybe be or whatever. You being alert even in those moments is in a weird way.
It's what I do right before I go to bed. It's what I do after I had the waking moment in the morning. I go through the process and plan it and then go. Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, for me, like going to bed, like especially when I'm thinking about something like this where I'd be like, ramped up. What if? One of the latest sleep techniques that I've learned is to go through the rainbow. Like really just thinking about the colors and kind of saying them in your head. Mm-hmm. Because again, this speaks to my brain. Like counting backwards or counting whatever, I lose track of that, right? Mm-hmm. But I can go red, orange, yellow, green, and then and start it over again. So I need to shut it off. I can't keep those. I can't think through it and go, oh, okay, it'll be all right.
And it's whatever works for people.
Yeah.
Something in the background for me, I purposefully try to listen to it. That way my brain's not going, I'm trying to listen to that versus planning or processing. And then and then eventually I'm asleep. I don't know that when it happens, but I'm purposely trying to listen. So instead of just...
to House Hunters?
Or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. There are certain shows that make me go to sleep faster.
Do you still listen to House Hunters during the week?
No. Gosh, no. No.
Aw. No. Well, yeah. So I just wanted to talk about the early days. It's a stressful situation that I think from a society or cultural standpoint, we don't give it enough merit in terms of how stressful it is. I think there's a lot of platitudes of, it'll be okay and blah, blah, blah if you talk about it. But it really is a stressful time. But I guess what I would say, having been through that, is even if a diagnosis is not what you wanted to hear, moving forward feels better than not knowing, right?
For sure.
So.
Luckily, we can talk about the early days.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing that we're able to do that.
Yeah. So, again, for everybody who's been listening, and we're super excited about all of the people who come and join us every week, and you guys, I feel like we're getting a good group of people following us, but please share, give us some comments, let us know what you want to talk about.
Especially specific episodes. If somebody needs to feel like, hey, that could help them and I listen to that, or there's something back there, share that one with them, do that. That's why we're doing this. That's literally the reason why we're doing this, to be able to maybe share something with, not that a phone call's bad or whatever, but instead of having to reach out, maybe we could reach out to 10 people without even knowing them, and she could maybe tell them something in that episode.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, so like a lot of my messages come through Instagram and they sit in this general mailbox that I don't see often.
Yeah.
You know, and then I go, oh geez, I missed that. You know, so that's the hope with this, is that you could be like, I'm in it right now and I need to listen to something, versus I'm going to reach out and maybe Heather will check her Instagram.
I think you should just offer, like, the first person that comments on YouTube gets like $100,000 from you or something.
You backing that?
We don't have one comment.
I know, not one comment.
Somebody needs to put a comment. Come on, people. Jimmy Christmas.
Who are YouTube people?
There are people watching all the time,
and no one comments on like what we're wearing or something. Ivy, something like that.
Something.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
You're better than that.
Right.
All right. All right. Well, until next week.
Yeah.
Glad you are
still here.
You are. All right.
See ya.